Hello and good evening, Chicago. Welcome back to another edition of Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio. The Bulls are still alive. They avoided a sweep, but it was not pretty over the weekend. Despite taking a game up in Milwaukee and facing the prospect of being able to control home court in this series, the Bulls not only lost both games over at United Center over the weekend, they got run out of the gym in both of them. We will be discussing the series, and is there any hope of this going to a sixth game, or are we looking at one more trip up to Milwaukee and then calling it not only a series but a season? Then the NFL Draft is just a few days away. The draft proper begins on Thursday. The Bears will begin their draft class on Friday with picks in the second and third rounds before wrapping things up on Saturday. We will take a bit of a dive into the world of the NFL Draft and try to prep Ryan Poles for his first draft that he's running as a general manager, looking at what positions I feel that the Bears should be looking to address and maybe what rounds they should be considering them, and maybe some players to look at as well. Lots to go over there. All that, plus maybe we'll talk some baseball and some other things going on before we get out of here tonight. All that and more on Chi-Town Weekly. Buckle it on up. Let's have some fun. And once again, welcome on into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio. I am your host, Adam Karnick. So glad that you are here with me, talking all things Chicago sports in the best sports city in the U.S. Not a whole lot of topics that we're going to be going over tonight, just two really big ones. Going to be going over the Bulls playoff series with the Milwaukee Bucks. Unfortunately, in some ways it's going exactly how I figured, but the way we got here was a little unique and a little different. We will discuss that at some length in the first segment, and then in our second segment tonight, we are going to be diving into the NFL Draft. Ryan Poles operating his first draft class as general manager of the Chicago Bears. We will be talking about that as well. We might sneak in some other stuff tonight. Might get into baseball a little bit. The Cubs and the White Sox had some interesting things going on over the weekend, but going to be focusing a lot on basketball and football. Before we get too much further into the show, though, of course, we do want to acknowledge our sponsors, the Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organizations. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you've been waiting for as an athlete. Find them on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, Instagram at Southern California_Warriors, or Facebook by searching Southern California Warriors. And IE Sports Radio, for almost 8 years now, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. We've got some new ones debuting this week as well, down in New Orleans, a new one down in Indianapolis, and we've got a new Texas-Oklahoma show just adding into our stable of already outstanding shows that we've got here at the network. All the while, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans. And with your help, we're ready to take the next step. When you go to our website, iesportsradio.com, you'll see our Patreon link with 5 different tiers. The first one starting at just $5 a month. This donation gets you shout-outs on all of our shows. Higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to our podcasting university, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment. Thank you all very much for continuing to make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. And a shout-out to our Patreon supporters at Bay Area Raised and at MLOS Great. Thank you guys for continuing to sponsor not just this show, but all of the shows here at the station. And we are available on all the major social platforms. Search IE Sports Radio, whether that's Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. This show is also available to you on Twitter at IESRC. I am available on Twitter at Adam_Karnick. Give us a follow there. And, of course, with the 2022 NFL Draft being later this week, we are doing our 3rd annual mock draft challenge. The rules are simple. Predict all 32 first-round picks. No trades, no modification. There's been enough trades happening in the real world anyway with it. No trades, no modifications, no tricks. Keep it simple. The participant who has the best mock draft will receive a shout-out on all of our shows and their choice of an IE Sports Radio hat or shirt. Again, I'll probably be choosing the hat if I win because I'm bald. I need it. For more information or submit your mock, reach out to Mike Pat, the host of Let's Whine About Sports. You can find him at Let'sWhine_IESR. Submit your mock draft to him. If you need to change it between now and Thursday, you can do that. He's flexible that way. He'll accept a change. He then knows which one is your current one. Best of luck. This show, okay, we went through how you can reach out again. This show is at IESRC. I am at Adam_Karnick. If you are listening live tonight on Spreaker, hop on into the chat. Let's have some fun that way. Taryn's in there already. We can talk back and forth that way. Have some fun that way. Or if you're listening later on in the week as a podcast, or you just want to sit back and listen to me talk, I am here for you in whatever way best suits you. I want you to be comfortable listening to this show. Good evening, Taryn. We're going to try and have an awesome show. Taryn, of course, is the host of Set Point. Normally, he would be on right after us talking all things volleyball. He went on last night, though. He's given us a quick update, though. Loyola Chicago men's volleyball team got swept out of the conference tournament semifinal against Purdue Fort Wayne. Boo. Had they advanced, they would have faced Ball State. Taryn liked the chances against Ball State, but they won't get there to get that chance. So, well, we'll see how Loyola does in the. I believe Loyola still qualified for the national tournament. Taryn, can you verify that for me? I believe I saw that, though. We are going to be talking a lot, though. We're going to be focusing on the Bulls here in the front half of the show, and then we are going to be talking about the Bears and the draft in the second half of the show. I want to start talking Bulls. I said a week ago before the series started that I felt like it was going to be a short series. I was going to honestly, genuinely be surprised. Yeah, I forget exactly how I put it, but I didn't expect the series to go much more than 4 or 5 games at the most. The Bulls, they just hadn't beaten good teams this season, and they hadn't beaten the Bucks in particular in an important game that mattered in forever. So to expect that the Bulls were somehow going to win twice in 5 games in order to force a 6th or 7th game, unfortunately, Loyola did not make the NCAA tournament. Disappointing. Well, thank you for that update, Taryn, but that is disappointing. So Loyola Chicago men's volleyball team eliminated. Frustrating. Just kind of add it to the weekend. It was a frustrating weekend for Chicago sports, not least of which because the Bulls, despite the sober or somber attitude that myself and a lot of other Bulls fans were kind of taking going into this series against the Bucks, the Bulls managed to come home tied at a game apiece. Shocking. Had you told me before the series started, had you come on the show last week and said, Adam, I guarantee you, I promise you that the Bulls will win one of the first 4 games, and I stacked them up by probability, which game is it going to be? I would have taken either of the 2 games at United Center. Game 3 would have been my first choice. That's the one they're winning, is Game 3. Next would have been Game 4. Then I would have said Game 1. Hey, they were coming off of some extended rest. The Bucks might have just kind of been sleeping coming out of the gate. The Bulls show that, no, they belong in the playoffs. They belong in this series. Hey, they take Game 1. The last one I would have picked would have been Game 2. And Game 2's the game where they played the best. They shot competently in Game 2. They defended while Giannis still had a good stat line in Game 2. I mean, you look at his box score for Game 2. I'm pulling it up right now. Giannis still finished with a double-double, 33 points, 18 rebounds, 9 assists. He's an assist away from a triple-double. The Bulls made it a priority to frustrate him, slow him down, and also admit that, all right, we know that you're still, no matter what we do, you're going to wind up with a good-looking stat line, but we're going to make sure that somebody else has to contribute to this in order to beat us. And nobody else was able to step up. It was a huge help, of course, that Chris Middleton and Bobby Portis, there we go, Bobby Portis, both got hurt. That was a huge help for the Bulls' cause in winning Game 2. But you also you look at the stats that they put up in Game 2. They shot nearly 50% from the field, just under 50% from the floor. They were 48% from 3. The offensive numbers were just so big, and some of the individual numbers. And you're talking DeRozan, 41 points, a new playoff high for him. A guy who, one of the knocks on him is when the playoffs come around, DeRozan doesn't necessarily show up. He showed up in Game 2. Vucevic, 24 points, 13 boards. Levine, 20 points. They got scoring from their big 3 guys. The big 3 contributed compared to the other 3 games where you're looking, they shot 32% in game from the floor in Game 1. They shot 39% in Game 3. They shot 38, just under 39% in Game 4. They shot darn near 50%. That's been the biggest thing, the biggest key in this series is the Bulls' just inability to consistently make baskets. And of course, the Bulls didn't shoot a lot of threes as a team heading into the playoffs. The Bucks give up a lot of threes, but the Bulls haven't been able to take advantage of that. 25% from 3 in Game 4, just 26% in Game 3. Game 1 was abysmal, not even 19%. Compare that to Game 2, the one game they won, they were 48% from 3. They've gotten, some of it's frustrating because they're taking open looks. The open looks aren't going down. You can look at that as a couple of ways. Vucevic has been awful in this series as a whole. I heard Davidson and Dentarius talk about it last night on Fast Break, breaking it down a little bit with the Bulls. They spent a good amount of time on the Bulls yesterday, since Game 4 was yesterday. And neither of them, Davidson especially, is not a big Vucevic fan. And you can see why, kind of watching this series, Vuce has been bad. And he's just been bad. You can understand why the Bucks aren't worrying about guarding him from the 3-point line, because he's just not making it. And not only is he not making it, he's missing badly. They leave him down low, let him rebound, let him bang down low. Yes, to have a big guy that can get out there and shoot threes, yes, that can stretch a defense, but he's got to be able to make those threes. And Vucevic has not been able to do that consistently at all. So the Bucks aren't worried about guarding him or stopping him from shooting those threes. They're almost even saying, please shoot those threes, because if it goes in, that's the rarity. That's the oddity. If it goes in, we're not worried about you consistently making these and hurting us with them. We just don't think it's going to happen. So had you come to me, so we go back to last week. I predicted that at best the Bulls were only going to win one game in this series, and that's all they've done to this point. But the way they've gone about it has been very interesting. Still with Chris Middleton out, it is annoying that Grayson Allen has stepped up the last couple games and picked up for Chris Middleton being out. Not least of which because of the issue with Allen and Alex Caruso. And Alex Caruso, unfortunately, he hasn't been ruled out of Game 5 yet. But the Bulls announced earlier today he is in concussion protocol. He is doubtful for Game 5. I'm pulling up the story right now to just confirm exactly what Donovan said. He is questionable heading into Game 5. He's in concussion protocol. They'll see if he'll be able to go. If he's able to go, and if he's able to go at as close to 100% as he possibly could be for this point in the season, in the series, that's huge because the Bulls need him. They need his defense. They need his effort out there on the court. They need him running point with Lonzo Ball being out and just other problems that they're having and experiencing. But at the same time, I don't know how much of a difference he's honestly going to make. I mean, if he's a no-go, then I think you pretty solidly mark it down that Game 5 will go to the Bucks and this will be over. If Caruso plays, all right, give the Bulls a fighting chance. Give them a puncher's chance. If Marcus Losgreat happens to be in the chat room, he can tell me if that term still gets used in boxing or not. A puncher's chance. That's what I would give the Bulls if Caruso plays. Is all right. They've got a puncher's chance. Then they're going to show up and they can give max effort, and we'll see what happens. But it's not looking good. It's not looking good for the Bulls. Unfortunately, they didn't necessarily take the route that I was expecting they were going to take, but unfortunately, they've kind of arrived where I thought they would a week ago when we were getting ready to start this series. That it was only going to go 5 games at the most. Hopefully, they'll prove me wrong. We'll see what happens Wednesday night. We'll see if they're able to pull off the upset, but I don't know that I'd be feeling too terribly optimistic about their chances at pulling off the upset. All right. We are going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to be talking about the NFL draft. It is this weekend, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. The Bears, of course, don't have a pick right now in the first round on Thursday. Instead, they're going to be waiting until Friday when they will be making 3 picks, 2 in the second round and 1 in the third. We're going to be talking a lot of NFL draft. In the meantime, during the break, we're going to be looking at positions and as well as specific players. And I've kind of got a little bit of a strategy that I'm wondering if polls might follow. In the meantime, during the break, text in some players that you'd like me to discuss or go through, and we'll talk about where you might expect that they get taken, and also what kind of a fit they might be for the Bears. Would they be a good fit, or would it be a little bit of a reach? So hop into the chat room, throw some player names at me if you like. This is Chi-Town Weekly. I am Adam Karnick here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Back in just a minute.
From the shores of the Puget Sound to the rushing waters of the Columbia River, stretching across the Great Cascades, and on IE Sports Radio lives the Northwest Territory Sports Show, hosted by me, Brad Buckingham. On this show, I cover all the great collegiate and professional sport teams that we have here in the Pacific Northwest. Of course, I'm talking about the Seattle Seahawks, Seattle Mariners, Sounders, and even the Seattle Kraken. But I can't forget all of that is good in Oregon either. I got the Trailblazers, the Oregon Ducks, the Beavers, even the Timbers, and much, much more. You can listen to the show every Sunday from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern, noon to 1 p.m. Pacific on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Motorsports takes many form, and there's one show on IE Sports Radio that's ready to cover it all.
I sure hope you're talking about you and I, Daryl, because I know the Extra Mile is the best place to go for everything motorsports related.
Yes, it is. From NASCAR to IndyCar to sports cars to everything in between, IE Sports Radio has everything covered for the fastest sport in the world.
Plus, don't forget all of our random shenanigans along the way.
That's right, Caitlin. So for plenty of motorsports coverage and plenty of Caitlinisms, check out The Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio with Daryl Kinsey Jr. and Caitlin Seen, Thursdays at 8 p.m.
Ladies and gentlemen, hear me and hear me good. If you like sports, then you like the Wait a Minute Show. If you like comedy, then you like the Wait a Minute Show. If you like a different opinion coming from a different angle, then you like the Wait a Minute Show. So join me Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with your host, Jelani J.B. Bodie. And of course, my man Lopan on the WaitAMinuteShow.com. Ain't that right, Lopan?
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I am Adam Kernick, happy to be with you. So want to wrap up a little bit from the first segment because right as we went to break, Taryn threw a Bulls question my way, wondering, are the Bulls pretty much done? I believe so, yes. At this point, I think they are done, especially if Alex Caruso can't go. If Caruso is a no-go for Game 5, I think they're done. If Caruso is able to clear concussion protocol and able to play Wednesday night, again, it's a little fortunate from a playing standpoint that Game 4 was Sunday and Game 5 is Wednesday. You've got that extra day off built in between. We'll see how he's doing from concussion protocol. If he's able to clear protocol and able to play, I give him a fighter's chance. I give him a slim chance. They did win in Milwaukee once before. Fortunately, bringing up that it's in Milwaukee, fortunately, Milwaukee's not that far from Chicago. It's only a 90-minute drive. Bulls fans travel well. Chicago fans in general travel well. It's one of the huge advantages of being in a city like Chicago where you've got you've got two major massive airports plus all the other, right there by all the major highways, ways to get around. Chicago fans do travel. There will be Bulls fans there in Milwaukee that, can support the team if things start going well. But no, I think they are done. I would not be shocked at all. In fact, I'd be surprised if there is a Game 6 on Friday. I'd be thrilled. Don't get me wrong. I'd be thrilled if there's a Game 6, but I think Game 5 is it. All right. So, the NFL draft is this week. Want to dive in. And thank you to Gina. She's hopping into the chat room, repping to Bay. Gina gonna need to do some homework for the NFL draft. Well, I'm here for that. A little bit different than what I've done in the past. I want to focus, especially because the Bears don't have a first-round pick this year, paying off the debt for acquiring Justin Fields, who I am still high on, by the way. The Bears had their mini camp last week, Matt Eberflus's first mini camp as head coach. I am still high on Justin Fields. I still feel that he can turn into the franchise quarterback that we have been waiting for since forever. I am still very high on him. I am still buying stock in Justin Fields. So if anybody's selling theirs, come see me. I want it. I am buying Justin Fields. Outside of that, though, just about every position on this roster is up for grabs. So I want to kind of dive through and talk about the positions specifically, because the Bears only have 6 picks in this draft. They have more holes than they have the ability to fill in this draft. So I kind of want to look at kind of a priority or a hierarchy for what positions should the Bears look to fill in this class with this draft and kind of where they should look at filling them. Start with the positions themselves. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball. The two position groups that I would say you don't need to, that you shouldn't look at really touching or addressing with the draft this year. quarterback and running back. Not that quarterback isn't important. I would not have a problem with Ryan Poles deciding to take a quarterback, but they've got Justin Fields already. They are committed to developing him, and they want to use this season to see, is he the guy? To learn, is he the guy or not? So they are fully committed to him for this season. So obviously you're not spending a high pick on a quarterback. And they've got two backups right now, two veteran backups. They signed Trevor Siemian, and they still have Nick Foles. Now, they've talked about wanting to trade Nick Foles. I think at this point, you're probably talking August realistically before that can happen. You want to see if guys get any injuries happen to some big-time starters, and perhaps you can float Nick Foles out there. So he might be able to help you in the 2023 draft, but I don't think you're trading him in time for this draft to have any consequence. So I don't see the Bears going for a quarterback. Running back, I don't see the value in drafting one this year. Running backs, unfortunately, running backs are a dime a dozen. You can find them literally everywhere. In every round of the draft, there are starting caliber running backs, and there are even guys that you can sign off the street as undrafted free agents who are quality backs, quality players for you. Excuse me. So I don't, with the Bears' limited resources right now, with just 6 draft picks, it doesn't make sense to me to have the Bears draft somebody. And I see Kale agrees with me. Yeah, draft running backs in the 4th through 7th round, not sooner. Yeah, that's just, unless it's a huge stud like the guy that the Steelers took last year in the 1st round from Alabama, whose name is escaping me. Kale, you'll probably be able to come up with it off the top of your head. I know you love this draft stuff. There's not a whole lot of value in taking a running back high. This year for the Bears, it makes no sense to draft one. If they could be valuable on a roster, don't worry about drafting one. Grab a guy as an undrafted free agent. Don't use one of your 6 picks. Elsewhere on offense, wide receiver, my goodness, that's the position to me for this team. You've got to get some weapons. The Bears haven't made a ton of... They've signed players. They have signed bodies so far this offseason. They haven't given out big-time money. They haven't given out big-time years to anybody. They did bring in a couple wide receivers. Equimanius St. Brown came over from the Packers. Go figure. Luke Getsy comes over from that. And then, of course, Byron Pringle came over from the Chiefs. Byron Pringle also had himself an interesting weekend. He got arrested for, get this. I mean, this is one of my theology professors in college used the expression, if you're going to sin boldly. Byron Pringle went all the way on screwing up on this one. He got arrested for doing donuts in his high-performance Dodge Hellcat car on a suspended driver's license with his son sitting in the front seat, not in a car seat. And then he resisted arrest. That's kind of the trifecta there. Just a man. Excellent. Did I mention that it was a great weekend in Chicago for sports? You had the Bulls losing. You had the Cubs dropping 3 out of 4 to the Pirates. You had the White Sox dropping 7 straight games and Tony La Russa losing his mind. I'm not going to be able to get into the baseball stuff tonight like I'd like to. We'll save that for another time. And then Byron Pringle getting arrested. It was an amazing weekend for Chicago sports. But even with those signings, the Bears need help at wide receiver. Fortunately, wide receiver is one of the deepest positions in this class. You've got guys everywhere at all levels, all rounds. The guy, of course, that would be amazing if he were to fall to the Bears, would be Chris Olave from Ohio State. Teammate of Justin Fields in college, has been flying up draft boards. He's a deep ball threat, knows how to score, knows how to get up and catch the ball. I don't see him lasting, unfortunately. It would be fantastic and amazing if he did. I don't think he's going to last into the second round, though. I put it this way. In general, I don't think the Bears are going to do a whole lot of trading up in this draft. I mean, we don't know. We don't know what Ryan Poles is going to do. This is me kind of guessing and projecting at this point. But based on the little bit we've seen from Ryan Poles in his offseason moves, in his free agent signings at least, he has been very reactionary, has been very cautious, with the exception of, right away trying to sign a three-technique defensive tackle right away when the legal tampering period opened. Unfortunately, that he failed to clear his physical, so the Bears couldn't sign him. We'll get into that a little bit more because I think three-technique remains a high priority for this team heading into the draft. But we've seen in a very isolated spot, we have seen Poles be aggressive. I think if Olave makes it, if we get to the end of Thursday, if the Lions draft pick number 32, they close out the first round and Olave is still on the board, I would not be shocked to see that the Bears swing a deal with Jacksonville to move up to from 39 to 33 and take Olave with that 33rd overall pick. In fact, I'd be all for it. I would be cheering it, quite honestly, because it's just it feels like peanut butter and chocolate. It just feels like it's too obvious of a combination for it to fail. So I would be all on board with that. I don't think Olave is going to make it. Unfortunately, I think he's just too good. There are too many wide receiver needy teams in front of the Bears that have first round picks. The Packers being one. Oh, if the Packers take him, I'm going to be upset. There are going to be 4-letter words said. There will be 4-letter words said if Olave is catching passes from Aaron Rodgers next year. But then again, the Packers seem to not want to support Aaron Rodgers with professional wide receivers. I don't get it. It's getting off on a tangent. So a name that I would be very interested in is George Pickens from Georgia. Before this past college season, you would have thought, he's bound for the first round in the NFL. 6'3", 195. NFL.com, they give him a score, a prospect grade that effectively means that he's gonna be a starter in the NFL. Maybe not right out of the gate, but he's gonna be a starter. However, he tore his ACL. That's huge. He was able to come back and play a little bit last season, though. He was able to play. I believe it was in the national championship game. He was able to play a little bit for Georgia. That's going to be a reason that he's going to fall into the second round. It's not the only reason he's going to fall into the second round. He's raw. He does have some weaknesses. He's got to work on some things. His route running needs a little bit of work. He's got to learn to make it easier to catch the ball, what scouts call his catch space. So just carving out an area, kind of like you see somebody do when they're boxing out in basketball, just standing your ground and, hey, I am here. This is my spot. He's got some football things to work on, but for where the Bears are heading into this season, where at best they're probably on the fringe of the playoffs at the best, you can afford to have a season where Pickens kind of just develops and is allowed to grow into the position a little bit more. I'm excited by him. I'm excited by George Pickens. I like the move there. I would love to see the Bears use one of their second-round picks on a wide receiver. Tight end. For me, tight end going into this draft for the Bears, that's a move for another time. The Bears do need a pass-catching tight end. There aren't really a bunch of great pass-catching tight ends available in this class. So I'm okay with the Bears kind of moving off of that pick, moving off of that for this year, saving that for another time, saving that for another class or another free agency period to look at. So I'm not too worried about tight end for this class. Offensive line, guard play, I think is something the Bears need to look at, especially since they let James Daniels go in free agency. I think that was a mistake. I think I understand where Ryan Poles was coming at with that decision to let James Daniels go, that there were some things in his makeup, not necessarily his physical, but in the way he played the position. He didn't see enough physicality from Daniels. He didn't see enough of that mental toughness. Sometimes I've heard it referred to as the Neanderthal gene, that just, I want to get at somebody. I want to go hit somebody. He didn't see enough of that from James Daniels. Okay, you decided to move on from him. I think that was a mistake. I think he's going to do very well out in Pittsburgh. He might even be protecting for Mitch Trubisky still. We'll see. But all right, you've got a need on offensive line. They had Larry Borum and Tevin Jenkins flip-flop positions in minicamp. They put Borum on the left tackle and Jenkins on the right tackle. Eberflus was just looking, just trying to gather information. Okay, fine, whatever. I've heard enough offensive line people say that those might be their natural positions, is to have Borum play left and Jenkins play right. That might be where they wind up. Okay, fine. Use this season to kind of find out. I'm not worried about using a high pick on a tackle. And honestly, not even a low pick on a tackle. I'm okay with letting these guys go and see what you've got there. But interior, you need a guard. You need some interior line play. I was reaching out. This is a good spot to do a reminder. Get in your mock draft to Mike Pat at letswine_IESR. Submit your mock draft to him by the first round on Thursday. I would say do it by Wednesday. That way you know you've got it and you've got it in. I was reaching out with both Mike and Evan Bruner, who was on the show a few weeks ago, just kind of talking over some different things with those guys. One guy that Evan Bruner brought up was Cam Jurgens to potentially be an interior offensive lineman. Now, Jurgens is listed as a center. Between Sam Mustipher and I forgot his name. There's a Packers player that the Bears brought over that played center for the Packers. Between those two guys, I'm not sure they necessarily need a center. So I'd be interested to see if Jurgens can play, if he can play guard, if he have the body type for that. It's not uncommon that a guy who can play center can also play guard. That's not atypical. That's not unusual. It's not unusual. Sorry. So that could be a guy, if he's willing to play guard instead of center, Jurgens could be an interesting guy to have in there. Elsewhere for interior line, though, I mean, that's really what you want. What I'd like to see would be a guard. You can get some of those guys late. Remember, the Bears don't have a first. They don't have a fourth. You can find some value there in the fifth round, potentially with getting some offensive linemen there. Another big one that the Bears need, we talked about it a little bit, is 3 technique, defensive tackle. The Bears, that was the first free agent signing polls tried to do, was for a true 3 technique, switching back from a 3-4 defense to a 4-3 defense. You're now trying to, with your defensive linemen, the way they're trying to attack is to go in between the offensive linemen as opposed to hitting them straight on like you have in a 3-4 scheme. It's one of the reasons why they're not going to bring Akeem Hicks back. Akeem Hicks is a great defensive tackle in a 3-4 scheme because his upper body strength is so good. He's so physically strong that one-on-one attacking an offensive lineman, he's just able to overwhelm them and push straight through. When you ask him to go in between 2 offensive linemen, that negates his strength. That takes away his best ability. So even though I know Eddie Jackson wants to bring Akeem Hicks back, it's trying to make a square peg fit into a round hole. You can do it, but it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be what you want. You're not going to get the results of what you want. So that's why Akeem Hicks doesn't make sense coming back to the Bears. I do see Akeem Hicks, Taryn, to kind of answer your question a little bit about something the Chargers could do. I could see Akeem Hicks going to the Chargers. That, to me, would make a lot of sense because he'd be able to play that defensive tackle in a 30 front, in a 3-4 front, and take advantage of his strength, which is his biggest strength. But for the Bears, it wouldn't be a fit. Talking with Mike Pat, getting ready for this, his feeling on it is that if you need a 3 technique, and Mike, speak of, he hopped right into the chat right as I was talking to you. Your ears must be burning. I was just talking about you. Mike Pat was advising me that if you're looking for a 3 technique, you better be looking early. It's not a position you want to wait on. So the Bears have 3 picks on Friday, 2 in the second round, 1 in the third round. That might be the spot to go get a 3 technique. There's a guy I'm interested in there in that spot. Perrion Winfrey from Oklahoma is an interesting guy in that spot. He grades on Pro Football Focus as maybe being a 4th round pick. So you could, depending on how the board goes, if he's sitting there in the 3rd round, you could take a look at him. 6'4", 290. Probably would only be, and he's from Illinois, from Roselle, Illinois. 3 technique is probably his most natural fit. I have Pro Football Focus listed as his only fit in the pros. He'd be somebody to keep an eye on there. Another guy who could be very interesting could be Logan Hall from Houston. He's a 22-year-old junior, not quite as big as Winfrey. He's 6'2", 283. But he played almost exclusively 3 technique for Houston and had success there. 106 tackles, 14 tackles for loss. Overall, a good grade. Played in 13 games this past year. Had 7 sacks, which was a career high for him. Really blossomed in his last year. That could be another interesting guy. Pro Football Focus has him graded in the 2nd round. Maybe you use that second round pick on him. Logan Hall is 6'6". Okay, Mike's chiming in here. Pro Football Focus has him listed at 6'2". I can understand an inch, 4 inches. Somebody got their number. Somebody's ruler was wrong there, one way or the other. But those are 2 interesting names there that I like for the Bears. So some interesting guys to look at there. I would not be shocked at all to see the Bears look at defensive tackle with one of their Friday picks. getting outside of the defensive line. Edge rusher, the Bears have done some signings there. They've made a couple of moves. Of course, you still have Robert Quinn. I don't necessarily see the Bears going crazy. Trying to find an edge rusher. You've still got Travis Gibson. You've still got Robert Quinn. They signed a player from the Colts whose name is escaping me. Of course it is. Point is they've got a little bit of depth there. I wouldn't be surprised if they save edge rusher for next offseason. Same with linebacker. Linebacker's a position where, yes, the Bears could use some improvement. Personally, my hope is that Roquan Smith plays the weak side linebacker. I feel like when the Bears drafted Roquan Smith, I remember texting some buddies and saying, "Oh my gosh, they just drafted Lance Briggs again." So, and Briggs played on the weak side. I feel like that's where Roquan would be best, would be ideal. You do need a middle linebacker to make the cover 2 defense work. I feel like that's a need for next offseason. They've got some veteran presence there, at least, that can get them through the season, that can buy them some time. Cornerback and safety are, to me, more pressing needs for the Bears right now. A name that Evan Bruner suggested to me was Zion McCollum from Sam Houston State. Could be an interesting guy at corner for the Bears, somebody that could fall a bit for them. Pro Football Focus, unsurprisingly, does not have him ranked in their top 10 at the position. Yes, Al-Qadim Muhammad. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. I knew it was a longer name. They've got their edge rush kind of, at least they've put a Band-Aid on edge rush for this offseason. You know, an undrafted free agent, sure. You know, find somebody who's, with the late round picks, I always want something intangible that you can't teach. Anytime you get guys fifth, 6th, 7th round, any of those rounds, there are going to be flaws. There are going to be problems with those prospects. That's why they fell. But you want something that you can't teach, like speed. Darnell Mooney, part of the reason I loved him in the 5th round was, okay, he's got all these things to work on, but he's fast. You cannot teach speed. You either have it or you don't. So speed is a great attribute. If you find an edge rusher in the 5th, 6th, or 7th round who's just, his speed is off the charts, sure, go ahead, take him. I'm not gonna get upset, but I'm not gonna prioritize getting somebody in that position either. The Bears just have too many needs to be worried about positions, trying to fill positions where you've already kind of got Band-Aids in place. McCollum, meanwhile, for Sam Houston State, he's got some flaws like everybody else, but NFL.com had some thoughts on him early, and man, he sounds like he would be an excellent pickup for the Bears. Again, late in the draft. You know, if you know we're talking late on. You know, 5th, 6th. The Bears have 3 6th round picks. You're going to be getting. You need to be getting, if you're getting a 6th rounder, he's got to be somebody that's going to be able to contribute on special teams. McCollum is somebody who should be able to do that, to be able to contribute on special teams overall. NFL.com gives him a draft projection of the 3rd or 4th round. Bears, again, they don't have a 4th round pick. So if he falls into the 5th round, man, you gotta jump on that. But 13 interceptions and 6 forced fumbles, able to play zone. That's big because the Bears are switching back to playing a zone defense. When they got Jalen Johnson, it was with the understanding that they were going to be playing man-to-man. Not that Johnson can't play zone. Not that Kindle Vildor can't play zone, but that's not necessarily the system that they were intended to be in when they were drafted originally. So you've got to kind of reset your mindset a little bit there. McCullum played gunner on the punt coverage team. That's the guy who's just flying down the field as fast as humanly possible, trying to tackle the guy as soon as he catches the ball. He played that position on special teams, so he gives you some value there in special teams, which you're going to need out of some of those later round picks. Yeah, the Bears have signed a lot of bodies this offseason, but nobody big. I'm seeing Mike's comment there about the Bears signing a former Commander and Raven at corner. None of the Bears offseason signings just knock my socks off. So as I'm getting ready for this draft, Ryan Poles, if you're listening, first of all, thank you for listening. I'm glad you found me. DM me and we'll talk later. For me, I'm prioritizing wide receiver and defensive tackle in this draft because those are the positions where you have, and when I say D tackle, I'm meaning 3 techniques specifically, because those are positions where you have nothing. You have absolutely nothing. You have warm bodies, and that's it at those positions. I'm not sold on Equimania St. Brown. I am not sold on Byron Pringle. I like Darnell Mooney, but not as a receiver that defenses have to game plan for kind of a guy. So you need something at wide receiver. You have nothing at 3 technique. I'm prioritizing those 2. And then I'd love to see guard, corner, possibly safety. There's not a ton of depth at safety in this class. So I'm not sure what you're going to get there at the safety position. But certainly guard and corner, I want to see addressed maybe a little bit later on with some depth and some value. All right, that is going to do it for our show tonight. Woo! Went through quite a bit there tonight with both the Bulls playoff recap and then Bears draft preview. Next week, of course, we're going to be breaking down the Bears draft. We're going to be going pick by pick. What we like, what we don't like about all the picks that they made. We'll also probably, just like we did last year, we will probably go through the rest of the division, see how they did, what mistakes the Lions made, the receivers that the Packers decided they didn't need, that they liked Sam Wan from Kokomo better, and what the Vikings do to just infuriate their fan base by not being able to coach up. We will be talking about all that next week. Stick around tonight, even though Taryn is not on later tonight. We do have a show after us tonight. Marcus from Atlanta is going to be on with Peachtree Sports. He is also going to be talking NFL draft, but obviously he's going to be focused on what the Falcons are going to be doing with their picks. So be sure to stick around there and just continue the draft discussion. And be sure to hit up Mike Pat. He is in the chat tonight. Hit him up with your mock draft. Submit that to him. Get entered in. Win some free swag. Who doesn't like free stuff? I know, we all do, right? We all do. Next week's show, obviously we're going to be breaking down draft. We will also we will certainly put a bow on whatever happened in the first round with the Bulls. Most likely it'll be a funeral. Who knows? Maybe it'll be a celebration. Either way, we'll have some fun with it. And yeah, we're going to have to talk about some baseball. We're going to have a conversation about Tony La Russa again. Old man's doggone lost his mind. All that and more next week. Be sure to check back in for it. Until then, I am Adam Karnick for IE Sports Radio. Thank you to some thank yous real quick. Thank you to SoCal Supreme Warriors. Thank you to Larry for all the work he does. Thank you to Taryn, Mike, Gina, Kale for hanging out in the chat room with me tonight. And finally, thank you for listening. We will do this all over again next week. Until then, see you next time.